Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, November 30th, 2025, and this is show number 1073. Well, I've been goofing off all Thanksgiving week, and I got that time off because I recorded with Adam Engst last week for this week, and because the delightful Eddie Tonkoy is back with another contribution. This time he's going to tell us the story of how he is preparing to record audiobook versions of his wife's fiction books. As with all of his articles, it's instructive and entertaining. So you're not going to hear too much individual recording of me, but it's going to be a great show. Friend of the show and good friend in real life, Bodie Grimm of the Kilowatt Podcast, hosts a game show every year in which Steve and I are his hapless victims. This year, it's entitled the 19th and a half Annual Thanksgiving Extravaganza. We play a Jeopardy-style game where Bodie made up the answers, but fiendishly chose categories we don't know anything about. Even the categories made no sense. One of them was entitled Category 5, which you might think would have been about hurricanes. But no, it was a case of Bodie just forgetting to change the title of the column. At some point in the game, we decided that if neither Steve nor I knew the answer to a question, Bodie would get the points. That would be okay, except Bodie declared himself the Supreme Court on all dispute decisions. Later in the game, Steve and I decided to pool our points together to try to beat Bodie. I don't want to spoil it to tell you how it all turned out. I put a link in the show notes to 918digital.com where you can listen to the audio, or you can follow the link to the YouTube version of the game. In the video, you can see Bodie, Steve, and me, along with the game board for even more enjoyment. Of course, you really should subscribe to the audio feed of Kilowatt in your podcatcher of choice, because Bodie is awesome.
Hi, this is Eddie Tonkoy. I'm the in-house nerd for everything behind the scenes on my wife Jern's character-driven queer love stories, editing, production, publishing, marketing, and the audiobooks. The physics teacher in me also enjoys sharing what I've learnt, so here's another segment for the NosillaCast. This time, I'll be looking at recording an audiobook. Recording an audiobook. Introduction. My wife, Jern Tonkoi, is writing fiction, and we're publishing it ourselves using Amazon and Kobo, etc. And being someone who likes listening more than reading, creating audiobooks seems a natural direction to go in. Even if it wasn't, the potential for more visibility and more sales is always going to be attractive, and so off I went. I have already recorded one, the bittersweet romance Lanta, and whilst I was happy with the product for reasons that will become apparent, I also wanted to do better. And so, I embarked on a long-term project to level up. But first, let's get to the crux. Why record my own audiobooks? No one is ever going to be able to tell Jern's stories exactly how Jern wants them to be told. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't do a good job. A great audiobook narrator is an actor, someone who takes a story and interprets it, making it their own. And a bad audiobook narrator sucks all the joy out of the story. No one is ever going to be able to tell Jern's stories exactly how Jern wants them to be told. But as her husband, I can get pretty darn close. I am passionate about the project. I love the characters. I have inside knowledge of their thoughts. And I love the characters. I believe that I can tell the story with the care, the feeling, and the authenticity that they deserve. Also, our alternatives are limited. We could pay for a voice actor, but a bad one is costly, and a great one is more costly. Maybe good value, but costly. AI voices can do the job, and with heavy direction can do a very good job, but it's not the same. And they need heavy direction still. In the end, though, I just wanted to do it. Maybe just because they are Jern's stories, and I love the characters. Now let's look at the time commitment, and this is big. Let's say a moderately sized book like Murder in Tregan Bay at 62,000 words comes in at 8 hours of audio. Assuming I can just walk in and record, that's going to take me about 10 hours to record if I'm lucky. I then need to edit it, which will take 5 to 10 hours. I'm not sure how well I can optimize that yet. This is getting rid of breath noise, pops, distractions. as well as removing those 2 hours of mistakes that I recorded. That's why my 8-hour book took 10 hours to record. I then need to listen to it all again to make sure the final version doesn't have any errors in it. So that's 30 hours of time commitment for a moderately sized book, assuming I can just walk in and start recording. It seems reasonable that I should be able to do that, but it's not that simple. In my other life, I have been speaking publicly for many years. I also have hours of YouTube spoken content behind me, and I even learned to sing. Yet, coming to record audiobooks, I have needed to really spend time working on my technique. Things like the physical setup of the room and microphone are one thing, but there's also posture, breath control, intonation, vocal presence, and fatigue to consider. I could have tried to refine my technique as I read, but then some chapters would be higher quality than others. And if I spend 5 hours recording, then suddenly realize a small adjustment makes a big improvement, do I go back to the beginning? Or do I enact a cunning plan instead? What if I don't record an audiobook first, but instead do smaller projects, articles for a podcast, say, that I use to perfect my technique? That's what I'm doing here. I hope I am providing valuable content for people, and I am producing each and every article to the best of my ability. But I am always learning, and if the 4th article sounds way better than the 3rd, that's great for everyone. So the tip here is the same as in so many areas of life. Don't start with a mega project. Start small. Start with steps that you can use to perfect your technique. I'm not going to record 15 articles, then sit back and say job done. I'm creating one article. I'm then listening to it, analyzing to find out what went well and what could be improved. I'm then creating a second article and applying my learning to that mini project. Then analyzing it, and so on. I'm practicing, but keeping the truth in mind. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. This is a major project that is important to Jern and me, so I am committing the time to do it right. I've actually got a real-world example, and I'm only 3 articles in. I had begun to notice that whilst my audio quality was high, I seemed to have a lot of breath noise, sharp intakes of breath getting picked up. You won't have noticed because I went through editing them out. I did some research and found out that the delightfully comfortable IKEA Poang that I had praised in my Shure microphone article was likely the cause. So, for this article, I'm switching to a standing position. I'd love to tell you the result, but since I haven't edited it yet, I can't. Now, actually, if I record 2 conclusions, I can just leave the correct one in. Here we go. So what I found is that by standing and being conscious of my breathing, I dramatically reduced the breath sounds. Now let's get into the physical setup, what's needed to record an audiobook. At least for me. Throughout all of this, try to keep in mind that the goal is to make the noise as low as possible and your voice as loud and clear as possible in the recording. You can go for a gruff, barely understandable voice if you want, but you want a clear recording of that gruff, barely understandable voice. Low noise simply means that if you record with your head as you would near the microphone and don't say anything, the recording should be silent. That's not possible, but it's the goal. When a car drives by outside, silent. When your wife sneezes in the other room, silent. When you breathe in and out, silent. Loud and clear means that your voice is picked up and sounds loud, but sounds right. No distortion, no weirdness, no echo. Just how you want it to sound. If you want it to be gruff and impossible to understand, that's fine. I'm just saying you want that recorded perfectly. Those are the ideals, and it's worth remembering them because your first task is to get as close to them as you can. You have a few things to play with, so let's look at them. The key ingredients are the room, the furniture, the microphone, and your head. Key factors in the room are to be able to isolate yourself from other people. For most people listening, that essentially means a room that other house members can stay out of, and that often means the bedroom. This can work well, with soft furnishings helping to stop echo. You can then get complicated with foam and whatnot, but don't be too hasty. Sound is a pernickety thing and hard to engineer. Have a listen first. Record yourself. You might find it is a beautiful environment without any change. You might be lucky. You can increase your odds with a few simple things. Number 1, close and seal any doors or windows. You won't seal perfectly, so don't get too demanding until you know you need it. A problem with sound is that it is logarithmic, which has the effect that even if you remove half the sound, it doesn't feel like it. It's hard to block sound, really hard. Secondly, don't get too close to flat surfaces. The typical ones are a wall in front of you, a wall behind you, a wall to your side, or, and this catches lots of people out, a huge flat monitor with your text on it. The problem with all of these is they reflect sound into the microphone, so it picks up your voice twice. The reverb could end up being beautiful, but probably won't. I record facing into the room so I don't get echo. My laptop display is on a music stand and angled slightly towards the ceiling, so that my voice reflects upwards and not towards the microphone, which is below my mouth. I'm about half a meter from a wall behind me, which could cause reflections, but seems okay. My nearest side wall is 1 meter, which seems fine too. Thirdly, position yourself away from the main sources of noise. I have outside noise from animals to the south and from a road to the east. I position my setup away from those walls. I also face the southeast. This means that the microphone, which picks up its signal mostly from in front of itself, is pointing away from the noisy southeast. It helps a little, I think. Fourthly, notice when it is quietest and record then. I tend to get more noisy motorbikes during the day and food sellers, etc. I also get cicadas in the early evening and Asian koals, which are particularly loud cuckoos, as the morning chorus. Recording is by far the best after 6:45 p.m, so I do it then. Fifthly, use the right kind of microphone. If you are blessed with a wonderful recording studio, well, can I ask why on earth you're listening to my advice? If you're blessed with a wonderful recording studio, you might like a condenser microphone. These pick up sound wonderfully and give crisp and clear audio. But they also pick up noise and are generally a bad choice for anyone who is going to pay attention to this article. A dynamic microphone tends to be more selective, with the type you want being designed to pick up sound only from in front of it. These vary greatly in cost and design, and I have extremely limited knowledge. By having used an iRig condenser microphone and a very good Mackie shotgun microphone, I can wholeheartedly recommend the Shure MV7 Plus if you can afford it. If you are even considering spending real money on soundproofing, spend your money on this first. And sixthly, practice your voice technique. Strength of voice, projection, and breath control go a surprisingly long way. If, after all that, you have a problem, you should at least now be able to properly identify it and hopefully address it directly. Now let's look at computer hardware and software, but I'm going to keep this brief because I already mentioned the Shure MV7 Plus and reviewed it elsewhere. I use a Mac, but you could use anything that the mic will plug into. Most devices will record with a high enough fidelity. My Shure MV7 Plus plugs in via USB, and I just use Audio Hijack to record because I own it and it's rock solid. I've also found Audacity to be rock solid on Mac and Windows, and that's free. Just choose something you are comfortable with and set it to record in mono at 44.1 kHz and 32-bit float quality so that you can edit without losing anything. Oh, and make sure you're not clipping the audio. Clipping means that the volume you spoke at was too loud for the microphone. It means your voice has lost some of its dynamism in the recording, and it sounds harsh normally. There's absolutely no need to even risk clipping, so dial it down. How you do that depends on your setup. I also suggest a pop filter, which is typically a nylon sheet mounted in a frame. It sits between your mouth and the microphone and basically stops bursts of air speeding from your mouth and hitting the microphone. Think of it as being like wind noise caused by your mouth. The pop filter stops these bursts, but is almost invisible to sound, so lets that through. It really helps. Once you have your audio file, you're going to need to edit it. Again, Audacity is the great free option. It lets you remove long breaks or fluffs. You can even create markers while you record if you'd like, to help you the editing after. I did that when I was starting, but as I make fewer mistakes, I've stopped bothering. We're now moving into the realm of audiobook production, but that's the topic of my next article, so I'll curtail this thread. But another important aspect is what you put your script on, the text of the book in my case. A computer most likely, and I used to use Word or another viewer. This worked, and I could scroll through easily enough, but a recent change has, quite unexpectedly, made a dramatic improvement. I now put my document in a teleprompter app, specifically the free version of Teleprompter Pro by Teleprompter Apps Limited. I have no idea yet if this is the long-term choice for me. I just wanted to try one and see if it was useful. But balked at the prices. Boy, is it useful. Putting my book in the app and having it scroll automatically has magically cut my error rate to a fraction of what it used to be. It turns out that having my eyes stay fairly steadily in the center of the screen as the words scroll makes fluffs less likely, even though I was manually scrolling before. I was genuinely surprised by this, but for me the difference was night and day. The free version still does what I need, I think, but if it didn't, I'd be buying, no question asked. The time savings of not having to edit out fluffs will add up to something significant over hours and hours of recording. So to recap, whilst getting into recording our own audiobooks in this burgeoning age of AI may seem like poor timing, I think of it more as a labor of love. We're going to get products we want to spend our own time with. If you don't feel that way, or you don't have the considerable time available to commit to it, other routes are available. If you do go down the path of creating audiobooks, position yourself to be lucky. Choose a good room, do basic sound blocking, position your microphone sensibly, and record with a strong, controlled voice. This is best done sitting up straight or standing, so that you can control your diaphragm and hence your breathing. When you start, make sure you iterate by listening to your recording and thinking about what's good and what's not so good. Make adjustments and try again. As you repeat, you'll improve and then get to the product you like. And for hardware and software, be sensible, but also consider if your microphone is suitable for the task. The computer or device you record onto is less of a concern, but if you can't get decent results with your microphone under ideal conditions, well, there's only so much that post-processing can do. It will polish your sound file, not transform it. And once you know you're doing this for good, try out teleprompter software and see if it helps you as much as it did me. In the next article, I'll get into the production of the audiobook. But for now, if you want to ask about any of this, you can find me, Eddie Tonkoy, and all the other Nocilla castaways at podfeet.com/Slack. I'm also on Instagram at Tonkoi Books, or you can pop over to see what is going on at tonkoibooks.com. Happy recording and happy reading.
I am loving this series because I'm learning so much about the things that go into making these recordings. In particular, I was very interested in the software that he's using as a teleprompter, and I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Thanks, Eddie, especially for letting me have a fun week off to play with my grandchildren. Kiwi Graham is a lovely person who contributes a lot to the podcasting community. He's very active with the Mac Geek Gab, for example, and he's part of the Nocilla Castaways as well. But last week, he took it up a notch. He went to podfeet.com/donate, and he bought me some virtual coffees. How lovely is that? You can be lovely too. It's an easy way to give the show some love with a one-time donation and to let me know you appreciate the work we do here. Thank you so much to Kiwi Graham. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond. This is episode number 824 for November 20th, 2025, and I'm your host, Allison Sheridan. I would like to welcome back to the show our guest, the ever delightful Adam Engst of Tidbits. How are you doing today, Adam?
Well, thank you. I'm so glad my Agentic web browser set this up for us.
Thank goodness it did.
I'm lying. No, I'm not lying about being glad. I'm lying about the Agentic web browser doing something.
And the Agentic web browser would have lied. So two wrongs make a right, right? Where are we going with all of that? We're going to talk about agentic web browsers, and where do you want to start? You've written a couple of articles, and one of them's about caution, and one of them's about counting, and I think the counting one is the fun one.
Well, why don't we talk about what they are?
Yeah, there you go.
Because I think this is sort of a big thing, and you really have to step outside the kind of the Apple orbit, because Safari ain't doing nothing like this. That we know about chatbots. Everyone knows about ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and the evil Grok and things like that. Yeah. And so, but what we've started to see popping up in the last few months is all of these companies, or many of these companies anyway, releasing their own browsers.
So you can't avoid it. There's like buttons in your face going, "Hey, you want to try Atlas?"
Yeah. ChatGPT Atlas, that's kind of the big one. A little bit before that was Comet from the Perplexity folks. And Dia from the people who made Arc. Well, that's not really fully agentic, but it's in that direction. Edge from Microsoft, you can use Copilot. Gemini is being built into Google. They finally seem to have shipped that, actually. For the longest time, they claimed to have it, but it wasn't rolled out to everybody, so I could never see it.
Okay. So that AI overview you saw, was it really Gemini? Gemini Lite? It
was Gemini, but it wasn't Gemini in the browser.
Okay.
So what these browsers do is they allow you to point. In essence, you're reading something on the web and you say, tell me about this thing right here that I'm reading about. Maybe the whole tab. Maybe you could even select some text and ask a question.
Okay.
It's just a sidebar off to the right, basically. And it's useful because, as we've discussed before, the big difference in talking to a chatbot versus a search engine is a search engine, you only care about the keywords, a couple of the important words.
Right.
Whereas with a chatbot, you want to tell it a lot. You want to tell it who you are, who it is, what it should be thinking about. Yeah, right. Why you care. And that's why you get good answers out of chatbots when search engines are like, here's a list of links. Go see if any of them are
Wish
what you
the
want.
best of luck.
Yeah, really. Ruts a rock. So the building the agents or the chatbots into the web browser brings you closer to providing lots of information. You can literally say,
context. Tell
me about this tab. Right, context. Lots of context.
But that's not agentic
really
yet. That's
not agentic yet.
That's just it's sitting in the same chair with you now instead of across the room.
Yeah, and so this is where we start to get into this problem of what is agentic. So if you're just asking ChatGPT or any other chatbot about what you're looking at, not really agentic, although it's starting to get there if it goes out and does a search and then comes back. Like
if
it's gone
and
done
does
something.
If it does something, that's the agentic part,
right?
Okay.
And then sort of where they go next is, well, what if you're asking it to analyze something on that tab?
Okay.
And it has to go and do math or, spin up some of its little Python-y tools in the background. Like,
so not research so much, or
but like, analysis. Like here's a list of items. Count them. As I got into this because I was trying to find a real world task. but there's one level more. So if it goes off and builds tools and runs the tools on the code, on the data that it found in the tab, that's sort of agentic. I mean,
Okay.
It's not. Again, depends what you mean by agentic.
Okay.
Then there's a full-on monkey agentic, monkey see, monkey do, and this is where the only
Is that
two
a
of them can
technical
really do
term?
this right. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Because we talk about monkeying through steps, right? Monkeying through steps is click here, slide there, do this, right?
Okay.
And so
I had never heard
ChatGPT
that
Atlas.
term, by the way.
Oh, really? Monkey
Yeah.
through steps? There you
Uh-uh.
go. Yeah. And the whole point is that you don't have to be smart about it. You just have to do the right things.
Okay.
So it's the, you're being almost an automaton. Click, 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 click. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm monkeying through.
Okay.
So, ChatGPT Atlas and Comet can both do monkey steps where they actually look at the page and click on it and interact with it.
Oh, they're actually
in
clicking.
your service.
Ooh.
Actually clicking,
Ooh.
moving around within the site, going to different sites if they have to.
Okay.
They are driving either your browser actually they can also drive a virtual browser.
Can they click the button that says "Prove you're a human"?
Yes, but it would be a lie. So it's this really kind of interesting problem where you're saying, okay, I want to achieve a task. I want to complete some task. Can the browser can some combination of these agentic capabilities do it for me? And they love to they love to give you examples like, oh, well, it could make restaurant reservations for you, or it could check your calendar. I mean, this is not in the low end of the agentic stuff. Like Claude, actually, the Claude app on your iPhone can connect to your calendar. And so it can check your calendar and make an appointment for you and stuff like that. I tested this once. It literally got the days wrong.
You had one
it was
job.
just I was sort of you checked my calendar. It had free, and instead of doing this day, and then you put it on the other day. Completely wrong. So most of the examples that I see, go off and shop for me, put stuff in my Amazon cart.
That's terrifying.
Book plane tickets for me, right? Absolutely,
plane tickets,
freaking
thousands
terrifying.
of dollars, right?
Right. Who in their freaking right mind would ever give something like this access to money?
Yeah. That seems...
Or even access to your calendar. In the sense of, I could see checking your calendar and being able to talk to it. It's like, oh, make an appointment for me on this date. There's nothing wrong with directing it, but having it go off and figure out a time and make some appointment for you? No, that's just stupid. No one's gonna allow that.
No, I agree with you 100%, but do you think we'll laugh at our naivete 5 years from now and look back and go, of course, we're all doing it?
So, well, not naivete. I think we will. I hope that we will be laughing at, wow, things were pretty rough back then.
Remember when it couldn't do that and now it can.
Right, when it couldn't do that. Because I mean, how long have we had ChatGPT? I forget. Is it 21 or 22? I can't remember when it shipped.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only been doing this for 3 or 4 years, right? This AI stuff.
And actively, most humans, maybe in the last year or two, right?
And it is freaking astonishing how far it's come.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as an aside, is why it's so embarrassing how far behind Apple is. But nonetheless, right. I mean, that this field is just blowing up all the time. I mean, the rate of change is so fast. And so, right, in a couple of years, who knows how good these things will be. Right now, they're not so good. So what I came up with, I wanted to write about ChatGPT Atlas. It had just shipped, and Comet was not much before then. And so I wanted to come up with a real task that I actually would have to do in my real life. And not, flying plane tickets or buying things or scheduling anything. And then I was asked by someone at Cornell who I work with. My Finger Lakes Runners Club hosts track meets at Barton Hall at Cornell, and we have to work with children and youth safety at Cornell to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed in regard to waivers and all that. And so I got a request from my contact there, how many minors were in your track meets?
Okay.
This is actually a relatively easy thing for me to answer. I can go to my registration system. I can download all the data as a CSV. I can open it in modern CSV, sort the age column, select from 18 and under, as was what they care about, and I'm done. Like that's an easy thing to do. But I thought, well, here's a task that I could feed to the Agentic web browsers, because there's 3 of these track meets, and and there's different ways of getting the data and all that. I'm like, I will try to do this. And that's where this article that I spent way. I mean, a task that I could have completed in about 5 minutes took me days.
It's a research project. But this
project.
This is what I love about you, Adam. This is exactly the madness that I adore.
Sucked down the rabbit hole. There damn well better be an article at the end of it. That's all I have to say.
Oh, I hate that when there isn't. When you go down the hole and then you go, well, that didn't do anything like I thought it would in the end.
Right. Well, you can't even get the negative result, right. It just didn't work. Sometimes it's just not interesting. Like, oh well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's great about this is the way you wrote this up as well. This is really fun. And this is not that hard of a job. You were asking it about 3 races. The data is there in an accessible format, and it just has to count them. That's all it had to do.
Yep. Count all the runners whose ages are 18 and under. That's what I basically was asking to do.
And the CSV had the runner names and the ages, right?
So it turns out that this turns out to be more subtle than it turns out than we thought. So it's very easy for me to get this data because I'm logged into the site.
Okay.
There's ways to get it if you're not logged into the site, but those are a little less obvious. And I tried it in many different ways. There's definitely one of those situations where, if I had just said, you have to do it, just like, here's my prompt, go off and do it, they all would have failed instantly.
Okay.
It's sort of like, again, it's like I would say a clueless intern, but we're not at that level yet. It's like a clueless elementary school intern. You have to tell them a lot of stuff if you want them to be able to get close to being able to solve the problem.
Okay.
So I'd gone into this being with the Pollyanna tech nerd belief of, well, these things are going to knock my socks off. It's going to be impressive. They claim to be all this good stuff. And as I said in the article, I came out of it seeing them as a bunch of hapless third graders. Who really,
not just third graders, like hapless third graders.
Oh no, these were not the clever third graders sitting up front answering all the questions with their hands in the air. These are the ones in back picking their noses and making rude noises in their armpits. Sorry. What I ran into was that there were these interesting problems. So, for instance, in terms of like getting the CSV or getting the download, it required clicking a button.
Oh, I just realized, in case anybody doesn't know, CSV stands for comma-separated values. It's a common way of exporting data that you can then import into a spreadsheet tool to do stuff.
Basically, a spreadsheet of data without any formulas or anything.
Right.
So all the data was in that format. But like clicking a button. But it turned out that button was a JavaScript button on this particular website. So you don't really notice that as a user. You click the button and something happens. But if you actually looked at the site, it was not to get the full listing was not something you could do. You couldn't like link to it. It wasn't its own HTML page. And so that kicked out all of the ones that were not like Comet and ChatGPT and Atlas and Comet, which literally couldn't click the button.
Because it was JavaScript? Was it because they were querying the page before the JavaScript had loaded?
Because remember, the ones that can't do monkey actions, all they can do is search the web.
Oh, because they couldn't click at all.
Right, they can't click at all.
Sorry. Okay. Got
So again, in the agentic stuff, they're the brains in a jar, right? So
Okay.
they can see and do anything they want, but they don't have hands. Whereas ChatGPT and Atlas and Comet have hands, and possibly prehensile tails. But so like that was something I discovered, that this seemingly simple way of getting the data was going to fail for all of these others. So I had to give them a simpler way to do it. I ended up feeding a lot of them, like downloading the CSV files myself and feeding them the files as a way of just like, okay, I'm doing your work for you here. Can you get a little closer? And so in the end, I mean, it was just ridiculous. The level to which these browsers failed miserably. And again, I tried to help them as much as I could within reason, but there were limits. So probably the worst one was Brave. Now Brave has this Leo AI chatbot, and it's just weak. It's just my son was once he was in a Waldorf school, so it was a very small class, and it tended to end up with kids who, for whatever reason, were not quite a good fit for the public school system. And there was this, I remember once there was this one little girl, Alexandra, who she had some learning difficulties, and she was in this class despite being several years older. And I remember, for some reason, I was there when they were doing math, and the teacher was trying to get her to do, I think, basic addition, and not like single digit basic addition. She was literally just guessing, just like throwing out numbers. I mean, like she
wanting
had
to
no
please the
clue.
teacher, but didn't understand the assignment.
Right.
Oh.
Nowhere even close. And that was what Brave reminded me of. It was just like 13, 29. I don't know.
Those are numbers, right?
Yeah, they're right. They're numbers. I got numbers. So that was pretty weak. As I moved up the stack, some of the information got, sometimes it got better. I don't know if this was quite. It feels weird to do this, but I actually thought more highly of the browsers that came close. Right? I mean, like, if you're only off by a couple, is that better than if you're just random? I mean, it feels like it is, right? Like, when you're just saying 768 and the answer is 200, well, that's worse than if you had guessed 201.
Well, if you're balancing
Or is it?
books or reporting your earnings to the SEC, no, both of those are the same bad. Right?
But if you're in third grade, you're in third grade, you got close.
I guess if you could show your work and you made a little bit of it, you swapped a couple of numbers or something, that kind of an error.
I forget offhand. I have to go back and look. There was one browser that I did give it some credit for showing its work. Oh, it was Comet at some point. Comet was like, it was on the right track, and then the train just like veered off the tracks.
Oh, yeah, when we get I can't wait till we get to that one. That one was a real piece of work.
So it was this truly fascinating exercise, and they I ended up having to really to kind of think of them in terms of these being third graders, because they did so badly at the task. Only one actually ever got the answer right, which was ChatGPT Atlas. However, I asked it. I mean, like, it literally gave me the correct answer, and my prompt actually had it like writing an email message to this person with the right answer and all that. And then I also asked it to build a Google Sheet with all the data so I could check it. And at some point, as I said in the article, it just like the first two races were fine. The third race, the first half was fine, and then it went full cuckoo. Like
in what way? Just made stuff up, or
it literally made everything up. It made up people.
Oh, really?
It's just like complete, like, because I mean, like, I actually, these are races that I manage. Like, I announce them and I helping with the timing and all that. I was like, well, I know who's in them. And I'm reading down this list. I'm like, wait a minute, who's
Who are
that?
these people?
Like, I've never seen that name before. I don't know these people well, but I recognize the names. And at some point I'm like, I don't recognize any of these names. And I was like, and I started doing some checking and counting and whatnot. And it in its verification sheet, it went full cuckoo and just hallucinated 60 runners or something like that.
Wow. So think of the danger of that, of you knew those names, so you knew that those were made up. But let's say you asked me to do this job for you, and I decided to use an agentic web browser to answer these questions, and I spit it back to you, and the numbers were close. I wouldn't, I wouldn't have any way to filter that out.
It's a little bit, it's actually a similar situation as a scam. I mean, I'm not saying these things are scams, but you think about it. You get,
Partial
the
truth.
text message that says, call this number because your account is overdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
You don't call the number, right? You
Right.
use an out of band. You look up the bank's phone number separately and call it separately. So what I was doing was wrong in the sense of I was asking it to generate my checksum.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it was a mistake on my part in some sense. I mean, like I honestly I didn't care that much, but I thought it was an interesting test. But basically, the real test was I had downloaded these CSV files, and I had my own external test, and that's what I was comparing against for real. But when I had it generate the test for me, it generated a test that was wrong.
Okay.
So I was within its reality bubble.
Right. Right.
And so if you don't leave, if you don't step outside the reality bubble, you can be fooled.
But that also sounds like then it makes the ability of these things to perform a task negligible. Because if you have to build the test outside of it, then that means you had to go do the math, and which means what do we need them for?
I mean,
To the audio audience, he's shrugging right now.
I'm like, I don't know. How do you shrug an audio? So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting problem, isn't it? That, I mean, you have to be able to, I mean, there's the old phrase, trust but verify. You have to be able to verify this stuff. And so early on, I think the tasks have to be simple enough that you can just look at it and go, that's wrong. But and we have to build up trust, which we don't have none of. To be clear, there's no trust at the moment now.
Right.
There's nowhere to go but up. The browsers are the least trustworthy now than they ever will be, I believe. We can hope. But we have to be able to build up trust, because as the tasks become more involved, more complex, our ability to verify them will become it'd be more difficult for us to verify them.
Can I give you another example of this where the AI wasn't actually wrong so much as they were just wrong? Lee Garrett did a video for Screencasts Online on perplexity, and it was a really great tutorial because he really digs in all these things that I never even looked at, buttons I never paid attention to, all these cool things it could do. And what he had it work on was planning a vacation for him where I think he was going to be in, I'm going to say Italy, and he wanted to know the best train to take from here to here, what time would he need to leave in order to be there at 10 a.m., and it kept telling him that there was this train that took an hour and 15 minutes. He was like, okay, this is good. He's doing hotels. He's figuring the whole thing out. And then he'd go to book it, and it was going to take 3 hours. And he went back to it, and it said, no, it's not going to take an hour and a half. It's going to take 3 hours. And it would check it. It would go, no, it's an hour and 15 minutes. And they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It turned out the exact dates Lee was choosing to go, that train line was going to be down for repairs, for maintenance.
Wow.
So it was wrong, but I'm not sure that was entirely its fault in that case. But again,
Right.
if he hadn't verified that, he might have planned his whole vacation around this, and then all of a sudden he's not going to be there for the tour, the bus, whatever's going to happen.
Well, yep. That said, I just saw The Verge had an interesting article. One of their editors is doing like the van life thing in Europe. And what he said is actually it's turned out that for that kind of like I'm looking for a cute village near here, near this city that has RV parking. Because you can't get into these medieval villages,
Right.
and that it turns out chatbots are really good at answering that kind of question.
Okay.
Much more so than trying to go to Google, because Google's just going to send you some random pages, and then you've got to analyze that data on those random pages. Just
But
is
it's
the village
only
cute?
a
Does it have
starting
our
point. It's
right?
only a starting point.
Everything has to be verified, and that's what this guy said. Is that every time he did this, it basically gave him the answer, then he would go check the answer and go, "Oh, yeah, that's a good answer."
Right.
Because in this case, the facts were relatively easy to come by. They were just hard to winnow out of the mass of data that would come from a search.
What scares me is that the people that we're talking about in these doing these experiments and studies and talking about it, and you and I obviously are critical thinkers. That's what we do. That's kind of at the core of who we are. Is we're critical. We look
Oh
at
yeah,
a
I see
thing.
where
Does
you're
that
going
make
with this
sense?
one.
Right?
Some people are just plain gullible. They'll
Most
believe anything.
people are not critical. I actually think the root of all problems is if we could just teach critical thinking in school. Don't teach anything else. Just teach critical thinking. We could get there. We could maybe survive as a species. But most people don't. It's so easy to see something and go, okay, that's probably true.
Yeah.
And the more
Yeah.
credible it sounds, and things are sounding more credible now, and yet without critical thinking to go, boy, I really want that to, oh, I should check. Or I really hate that that's true. Oh, I better go check. One way or the other. Either it's
Yeah.
enraging you or aligning with your own values. Either one of those, you should go check because it's probably not true.
So in any event, yes, it is just fascinating, and I did have to do a lot of checking, and that's in this article. I mean, the problem was I had 3 track meets, each which had their own number, and so so I was kind of going bananas. I ended up reporting the numbers partly to record them so that I knew how close or wrong it was and all that. Comet, which was the other monkey browser, that could click stuff. It had a different problem. I had apparently given Comet access to my Google Drive, so it could read stuff and actually create Google Sheets and stuff like that. And it had real trouble. The first time when it showed it works, it went off the rails, and it came up with numbers of 2, 2, and 3 instead of 193, 199.
It's better when they're wrong by that much because you can tell it's wrong.
You're just like,
right
oh,
away.
Come on. You're not even close. But when I gave it the last chance, it spent like an hour at this stuff.
Oh, jeez.
And then it came up with exactly the same numbers as ChatGPT Atlas.
Huh. Okay.
Or rather, it came up with the same numbers as ChatGPT Atlas when ChatGPT Atlas made up data. Comet went and cheated.
It copied off its paper?
It copied off ChatGPT's paper. It found the ChatGPT Atlas spreadsheet and basically said, well, look at this.
I don't have to do this
one.
work. I already got this answer right here.
It was brilliant. I'm like, wow.
I love the headings of the way again Adam wrote this. Comet gets a grade D, hardworking but needs academic integrity referral.
I mean, it's been a long time cheating. Put it that way.
By the way, Brave got grade F, recommended remedial practice. But where was the other one? The other one I really liked. One of them was daydreams in class.
Yeah, ChatGPT Atlas, promising, but daydreams in class. That's the one went full cuckoo halfway through. I was like, it just sort of
tired.
I'm tired. I'm just gonna make stuff up now. I'm bored. So Dia was the fourth one. This one can't click, but it is pretty good at working with. It can actually point it at multiple tabs. So I could give it these 3 tabs and say, count the data in these 3 tabs. And it didn't work so well at that. And when I fed it fed it the CSVs and did it 1 per tab, things like that, it came pretty close. So it was, I gave it a C because, well, I'm grading really easy. So let's face it.
And you have a soft spot for Dia,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I would like to. It'll be like ARC in another year if we're lucky. And then, of course, the last one was Microsoft Edge, which was
wait
the
a
comment
minute. You skipped a part, I wanted to make sure I highlighted a part. You said it stopped halfway through. It just
yes.
stopped.
I don't know. It's just like maybe its context window filled up. It's you ever seen the Far Side cartoon? Mrs. Johnson may be excused. My brain is full.
Yeah, I love it.
That's kind of what I felt
Buffer
about Dia.
overflow.
I'm done. I don't feel like doing anymore. It's too hard. It was like those Barbies. Oh, this was from the early '90s. Possibly you'll remember this. There was an activist art hacker who replaced the voice boxes in G.I. Joe dolls with voice boxes from Barbies. So G.I. Joe would say, "Math is hard."
Oh, no, I love it. Hey, here's a fun
Yeah.
fact to know and tell. I met a woman at the gym who was the toy chair, which is just a great name, for Marymount University. And her previous job was she had worked for Mattel, and she designed the Barbie that while she was on vacation, they added the voice that said, "Math is hard." That was her Barbie.
Oh, wow. She must have thrown a hissy fit.
Yeah, she didn't win, but yeah, that one was hers. There's more stories she had to tell. It just seemed she was the one that designed the Barbie with the roller skates, or it was like rollerblade Barbie, the one
that
people
could start
figured out that
fires?
you could start fires with it. Yeah, with a can of hairspray. Yeah, she had a lot of great experiences there. Okay, so Edge gets grade F, schedule psychological assessment. What did it do?
It never came anywhere close to getting the right results. It was just way, way off. And I mean, not even close. But all these browsers have some level of show my thinking. Like you can see how they got to where you are. And it just on like I happened to click this for Edge, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I this is really problematic. So, you can read the kind of it's like this. It's the internal monologue of what the browser is thinking. So the first one is, I just like, okay, the user wants the minors counted in each of the 3 meets, but time is running short. I'm thinking I can't manually count all ages of registrants, so maybe I can give total numbers for January, February, and March registrations, 260, 297, 242. Total numbers is good. I had asked for that. However, counting the minors exactly without parsing every list seems tricky. Should I estimate? I'll probably need to offer a spreadsheet of the runners with the required info, name, age, and meet, making as precise as I can given the constraints. I'm thinking of providing estimates for the minors count by scanning each list, but it's risky to be wrong. Can't ask for clarification and must avoid apologizing. Given the constraints, I'll give the total registrations, blah, 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 and estimate the minors. I think I can present a spreadsheet with these totals, but leave some fields empty because I can't be certain.
Did you give it those constraints? Did you tell it, don't estimate, don't be wrong, don't apologize?
By this, not don't apologize, but I at some point did say don't estimate.
Okay.
Because it was just like, because when I went and looked at the numbers, I'm like, these are completely wrong, and looked, it's like this is basically, it kept saying math is hard. Sorry, I bring it back. I mean, I didn't have it in the article, but math is hard. I'm going to estimate. And so then I started pushing it. And so a couple of these monologues, and it keeps referencing pressure. I mean, in another one, still I know the pressure is on to respond now. To play it safe, I'll apologize, explain I can't finish instantly, and promise to get back to them shortly with the precise counts, which it didn't do. It sounded like this like intern who's being, screamed at by a boss to just get it down now. I don't care if it's right. I need it now. I need it yesterday.
What thing, or what is
that? That's where I ended up going with this, is like, this feels really kind of problematic. So the only legitimate thing I can think is that co-pilots, because this is Copilot underneath Edge, the co-pilots, the people who are designing the prompts, are trying to save money. They don't want it to go off and think harder, which it will do because it's ChatGPT under the hood.
Right.
And that will cost more processing time and therefore more money. And so if they kind of create this artificial time constraint, you have to respond as quickly as possible. And to be fair, Edge was the fastest to respond. It was the most kind of natural conversational. It was just like, boom, I got the answer. It was wrong every time, completely, but it came back like that each time.
So,
And
aren't we anthropomorphizing this to suggest that they are thinking? Because it's an LLM. It's not thinking.
yeah, it's not thinking, but it's building into its response this pressure, in essence, from its designer.
Okay.
So it's not thinking.
Turning that into words that make it sound like it's thinking. But so
I mean,
if the algorithm
I'm
says never take more than 30 seconds to answer this question, it can then build a response that says, I'm under a lot of pressure and time. But it's not really thinking. Just want to make sure people.
No, it's not really thinking. No.
Okay, good, good.
But it's useful to say that though. Now that I think about it, because particularly with ChatGPT, it has thinking mode, right? Like it's normal, and then it's thinking, and the thinking mode takes longer. And no, it's not thinking, but is running more iterations. So one of the things they discovered with LLMs is if you simply said, do more, then it would get better answers. So that you get a result, check it. Like do this 3 times. Literally could be as simple as that. And you would get better answers. And so that's kind of what thinking modes do, is they trade speed for they give up speed and get accuracy, or accuracy meaning better responses. Whether or not that means they're actually quote unquote right with math is a different story, but overall the responses are better, more informed.
So overall, the task you're asking it to do, which is math, is something LLMs are not good at. So in a way, parts of that are a poor test. But getting the number
because
wrong,
they're good at tools. But they're good at tools.
Like they could write a Python script that counted.
They should have written a Python script to just do this, right? That would have been a good way to
dodge the fact that it doesn't know the answer. That it can't add numbers.
I don't really expect it. I didn't really expect the LLMs to do that. I expected them to use tools.
But making up names in the table
that was just like, as a full cuckoo,
or cheating off the other one's paper. Those are you've uncovered some real interesting behavioral issues.
Yeah, so it's but I do think there was a little bit of the kind of the Microsoft corporate culture seems to be pushing Copilot in a certain way, and
we're surmising. But
it's
not an illogical conclusion.
There's some level of system prompt which is causing this sort of thing. So I've been using ChatGPT Atlas for another task recently, and you can see its see its things, and it's like, okay, the user wants this, and the user, there's been times like you got it wrong. The user, I sense frustration on the user's part. I need to get this right. It's much more chipper. Like that. It's again
as
a little
opposed
bit
to browbeaten.
Right. Yeah. It's a little bit like the third grader who isn't really all that good, but is always upbeat. Like, I'll get it this time, Mr. Johnson. I'll try harder.
As opposed to, please don't beat me, Mr. Johnson.
Pretty much. I mean, that was really what I got out of this one.
That's interesting. Maybe
I felt sorry for it. I mean, again, I realize I'm anthropomorphizing all over the place here, but I really did feel sorry if a person was saying these things, I would just be like,
can I take you out for a cup of coffee or something?
It's okay.
You okay?
It's okay. Do you want to take a rest?
Now, speaking of anthropomorphizing, I really like the section you wrote on please and thank you. And describe your perspective on how to speak to these.
Yeah. So this Copilot's anxiety really triggered this for me. And there was a little bit of research back, should you, when you're talking to a chatbot, be polite? Should you say, could you please do this? And should you say thank you when it does it? Presumably if it does a good job. And I think that's a little overkill. I mean, we are still talking computers here. It is not, you're not going to change things. And I do believe that the research did show that you didn't get better answers by saying please.
Okay.
That it did not change things. However, um, I firmly believe that basically you have to watch, in essence, cognitive leak, where something you say in one context spills over to another context. So if you are mean to your chatbot
Mhm.
when no one is looking, how is that different than like shouting at your cat?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Just like
habit, right?
it's a habit, and you start to get into that kind of behavior. Well, you would never say this to a person to a person until like you're frustrated with a cashier who's having trouble with the cash register, and you're in a hurry, and suddenly you're talking to them like you're talking to your chatbot. And
Maybe you
it
should.
feels like a slippery slope that you really do not want to normalize derogatory language. And so I don't think you have to go a full please and thank you, and praising them, but I do feel like there should be a basic level of sort of,
Politeness.
politeness, professional behavior in some sense. Like if you wouldn't talk to a person that way, you shouldn't talk to a chatbot that way.
I think in terms of training ourselves to be more humane to each other, we could use kindness everywhere. I wonder
Yeah.
whether this is an effect that actually has to do with how quickly you type. So you and I probably both type on the higher end scale of speed because we type all the time. And so for me to write please, thanks or please in the middle of a sentence, I would have to work hard to stop myself from writing that way. I'd have to
Mm.
consciously erase it because I'm typing so quickly. Because that's the way I write. I say please and thank you to people. And so I would have to think it out. But if you're a hunt and pecker, it's going, okay, I got to say please, PLE. Maybe that's where sometimes people are not as,
And it's fine to be terse. I mean, you're usually better if you're not terse, but it's fine to be terse. Like you don't, again, not saying you have to say please and thank you, but I do think it's important to not, and I think it is reasonable to criticize. In fact, that if you say
I always ask
you
it
got
why.
this wrong,
Why did you say that? I already told you that was wrong. I don't know whether I don't think that helps
you
either.
never get good answers to that either because it doesn't know why.
My bad.
Yeah. But I do think that that there is a certain level of if you express disappointment or tell it that it was wrong, it knows to try over, try
Yeah.
again, do better, that kind of thing. And so,
Maybe
but again, there's a difference between like correcting someone who works for you because they've made a mistake and
berating them.
screaming at them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was kind of where I kind of it just seemed like it seemed like Microsoft was going too far in the other direction for how it was telling Copilot to act. And that was what kind of triggered me to say like, yeah, it's just not a good, you don't want to think that way.
It's good habits to stay
Good
in
habits.
that. No,
Precisely.
I have started to do, you said the word terse, and I don't know if that's quite the right word of what I meant, but I've started to be more brief. Like I used to say,
Yeah.
I am working on this application and it has thrown this error. Can you please tell me what this means? Let me paste in the error code. Now I just paste in the error code and it'll say,
Go.
the user appears to be asking me what this error code means, and then it'll tell me the answer. So all that time I would have spent asking it to analyze it, I don't really need to do that because it knows if I throw an error code, I'm probably asking you what the heck this thing means. Never knows what they mean, but
Yeah. No, it's that is true. And I'm a great believer in using screenshots of like errors or that sort of thing.
I
I find
usually
it very
copy the
effective,
text.
actually.
That's an interesting
Oh,
idea.
use a screenshot, much easier.
Well,
Copy the screenshot to the clipboard and then paste it in.
Command Shift 8, drag across it, I get the text and I give it to it.
Oh, okay. Same principle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. The reason why I do the the screenshot also is depending on where I am. Sometimes there's context. So like when I'm writing in Xcode, like, I don't know what these errors mean. So I like select everything that it sort of has highlighted.
Yeah, because that might be
along with it.
context for it. Yeah. I
Right.
gave it one the other day. It was some error that Apple's getting. Like, yeah, I can't get the App Store to work on one of my Macs, which I don't know what to do about. But I got this error thrown, and I gave it to ChatGPT, and it said, "Okay, well, this is an error that means that has to do with this kind of thing." And I said, "But what does this code 1501? What does it mean?" It goes, "Yeah, Apple just doesn't tell you, but all they're going to tell you is authentication error." And that was a truthful answer. It's like, heck if I know, because they don't tell you what that means. Good.
Like,
I wish you the best of luck.
Well, that's actually really good. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know is a very valuable answer.
Oh, yeah.
I think
It
that is
really
a great
needs-
answer. You're right.
Stop making stuff up and tell us when you don't know. Don't try to please us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I've actually been working on another thing, which I don't know if it'll be turned into an article or not. I want to build a pace calculator for the track workouts that I coach. So if you run a mile race in 6 minutes, your training paces should be X, Y, and Z. If you run the mile race in 8 minutes, you have A, B, and C, completely different training paces. And there's a system, a guy named Jack Daniels, wonderfully named running coach, had nothing to do with the whiskey, who unfortunately just passed away. He's a super guy, lived near here, so I knew him. But he has like this entire system that tells you how to like figure out your paces and all of that. And I've been trying to build a calculator for this that I can use to share the workouts that I'm building. And it's an interesting problem because I have to get the data in there. And I had thought the data was based on formulas. But it turns out that, it must be back in the day, but basically there's a book, and the book has, tables, that give you all this information.
Okay.
And so the online calculators that other people have done apparently just use the tables. And so I'm never quite I'm having trouble figuring out how to make this stuff match, because the AIs were pretty good at building formulas, but then the numbers were off by a little. And I don't know why, right? I can just say, well, at this pace, the 200 meter and the 400 reps are off by a second or two. I don't know if that's okay or not.
Huh.
And so
that sounds like a really fun project, by the way. I started thinking, how would I do that? I want to do that.
Right. Well, and so here's the thing. So, I'm using a couple of different chatbots in different ways. So basically they can work out the math, and they've worked out the math, and that's where I get these numbers that are slightly off. And there's an official calculator also online, which I'm taking as gospel for some of the stuff that the book is when it's not in the book. And but what it's saying is, well, if you give me the data in the book, I'll be able to build, to get exactly the same information as in the calculator. But people kind of didn't see the picture. It's 2 pages of 2-page spreads of big tables. So how do you get that information in? Would you think? No one's done this before that I've been able to find.
Why not a CSV?
Well, I don't have a CSV. I have a book. And so what I did, so I took a picture and I fed it to ChatGPT. It said, I just can't do OCR on this. The numbers are too small and too close together and all that. And so, and I don't know if there's the difference is I had started using ChatGPT Atlas in an agentic mode to actually compare the code that it had generated for me with the official calculator in a tab. So it could actually monkey around in the official calculator to check itself.
Okay, but you're trusting it with numbers again, Adam. Have you learned nothing from your entire project?
Well, it's more than that allows me to say, go check yourself. And then once you think you've got it, come back to me and I'll check you externally.
But it might go over and cheat off ChatGPT's paper that it found in your Google Sheets. You already know not to trust these hapless third graders.
But I have to get it back to, I want it to be able to have something where it can test itself as an intermediary step.
Okay.
So that I don't have to say, you got it wrong, you got it wrong, you got it wrong.
But it's going to lie to you. It's going to lie. Adam, this is the road to madness.
No, but that's the thing is that it doesn't. I mean, it's not trying to lie. So if it tests and it fails, it goes back and tries again. And when it finally thinks it's right, I've avoided multiple steps where it might have gotten it wrong. And so
Okay.
I can then check against the text in the book and say, okay, now you're closer, right? You're closer, you're not closer, whatever. Before I was doing this, it would come up with completely silly numbers, and I was just like, that's just silly numbers. Do it again.
Okay. So
And
now it's
so this
sitting
is
there
it.
coming up with silly numbers, but checking itself. And when it starts to get close, then it asks, Mr. Johnson, am I getting close? I've been guessing for the last 2.5 hours.
So anyway, you see the issue, and so the idea is to feed it this data, and so like, I really don't want to type in all these numbers. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of numbers, and I thought, well, I could do voice because that Siri is actually pretty good. Dictation's pretty good with that. Or and I'm like, well, what if I take photos, but I take them and really crop them and make them smaller, so it like doesn't have to do the whole thing at once. And I fed that to ChatGPT Atlas, and it did a different kind of OCR, which I had never seen before. It actually used its virtual browser to crop the photos that I took more to make them manageable, OCR'd them, and then put the data in a CSV like I asked. And then it went off into did the next little chunk, the next little chunk. So it was a fascinating thing because again, early on, I'd given it to ChatGPT and it refused. Whereas this, once I gave it to the Agentic browser and it could like chop the file into pieces that were manageable to it, it did.
I want to see one of these. Send me one of these photos or all of them. I just feel like you could bring it up in photos and select the text. I mean, unless it's a really
you can,
terrible,
but it's tabular text.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it then?
So
It doesn't have tabs in the middle of it. It's a big blob of numbers.
Sure.
But
you can
try this. You
send
think
it
it's
to
easy.
me. I want to see it.
Yeah. I'll put it in
Okay,
the
we'll
chat.
leave that challenge for the students.
Yeah. But it was a truly interesting experience because I had the same thought. I did exactly what you suggested, and I got the numbers into BB Edit, and I'm like, crap. Like it will be so much work to try to figure out how these numbers fit, like where they are in a column.
Okay. Well, now I'm excited to try. Well,
Now you're caught up in my system.
Oh yeah.
So
we've done this to each other before.
And there's all sorts of interesting stuff. So like the way you work with the book is you enter your race pace for a specific distance, or you look up your race pace and it tells you this number called V dot. Don't ask what it's for. It's just called V dot. And then you take the V dot number and you go look it up in the training tables. Mm-hmm. So like I'm a V dot of 59, or I used to be a V dot of 59. So I'd go over to 59 and then say, well, my 200 meter pace is 37 seconds. My 400 meter pace is 75 seconds, something like that.
Okay.
But in the book, all the V dot numbers are integers.
Oh.
But if you think about it, there's no reason for that other than presentation, right? When you have a computer, V dot numbers can be
floating point
decimal points, right?
Yeah.
You get decimals, and that is in some ways more accurate because the way the V dot table, the table works is you enter a rate, you look at your race time. Well, I ran a 4:59 mile, but the closest is 5:02, so I'll go to that.
You know what this reminds me of, Adam? Back in my day, I am so old. In order to do calculations on like trigonometry using sine and cosine, that sort of thing, we had a thing called the CRC math tables, where you would look up, let's say it would tell you the value for 31 degrees, the sine of 31, and the sine of 32, and you would interpolate between those two numbers if you needed 31.7. This sounds exactly like that.
And that is exactly what, so I'm talking about all this stuff with ChatGPT, and it's like, well, I've used the math system, but the way to get the better numbers is if you feed me all this data, and then I will do a linear interpolation between these two numbers. And I'm like, so where we were when we started, where I was when we started this call, was I'd been uploading these photos and getting a CSV, and I realized I'd forgotten the second page, and and things like that. So like it's this really involved process, but it's and in this case, it's not. I don't have another way to do this.
Have you asked the ChatGPT if they can find this data online, these tables?
Oh yeah. No, I've
Okay.
looked.
All right, good.
I've looked.
Okay.
And I've even looked in Google and stuff like that. There's actually there's an MCP server, and this is getting into AI stuff that I don't understand yet. There's an MCP server that will apparently you can query to get all this data. You can like feed it a query, and it will answer the stuff back.
Okay.
So someone has built a service to do exactly what I want. I just don't know how to use it.
Okay. All right. Well, we may be down another rabbit hole as we do.
But I think to pull back, what's interesting about these agentic browsers is they are pointing the way to a future where if you can describe a task, it might be able to do it for you. I'm not going to say it will, and it will depend on whether or not you can describe it well enough. But what we're seeing is it's almost the doing of the task is separate from understanding what the task needs to be.
Yeah, that's
an
important distinction.
A really important distinction, because we're seeing all this hair pulling about our AI is going to eliminate the jobs for programmers. Well, no, because what a programmer does is implement something that they want to have happen. The coding is sort of irrelevant, right? We write pseudocode all the time, or specs. I mean, a spec is a pseudocode.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the hard part. That's what programming is all about. And so, sure, the AIs might take over the ability to, the monkey work of writing down Python code. And maybe an engineer could have done that, but the AIs will do it faster and possibly better.
And more repeatedly, fewer typos.
Right. Yeah, like you won't have stupid mistakes, that kind of thing. You'll have different stupid mistakes possibly. but still, defining what you want, only a person can do that, because it is by definition the person's desires.
Exactly.
Like there can be no way that can be replaced. Someone has to say. And so, to again, pull back another level is, well, who tells the programmer what to do? Management. Okay. But management doesn't go into the weeds.
Right.
Management is in the I want the Apple Watch to do X. Go forth and conquer, right? You can't tell the AI, I want the Apple Watch to do X, and have it do that. You have to have a programmer who says, well, what X really involves is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like this incredible set of, well, let me define all the variables and
requirements
what happens
and constraints and yeah.
Precisely. So we are going to have to change a little bit of what we think, but I believe that this agentic future is changing some of, it's refocusing what we need to think about on defining what we want, rather than spending all the time down in the weeds pushing numbers around.
Exactly. Well, this has been fun. I can't recommend this article enough, even just for the comedy of what you wrote. But the madness, the comedy, and the observations are all equally valuable in this. And of course, there will be a link in the show notes to the article entitled, "Can Agentic Web Browsers Count?" Thanks for coming on the show again, Adam.
Always enjoyable. Thanks so much, Allison.
Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have a question or a suggestion, just send it on over. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet.com/Mastodon. If you want to listen to the podcast on YouTube like the kids do today, you can go to podfeet.com/YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, you can join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me, all of the other lovely No Silly Castaways, and Eddie Tonkoy, as he said. You can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon, or you can be cool like Kiwi Graham and go to podfeet.com/donate to make a one-time donation. You can use Apple Pay there or any credit card. Or you could go to podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic No-Silla castaways. This week, we had 5 ladies to start the show at the beginning. We let the gentlemen come in a little bit later. Anyway, thanks for listening and stay subscribed.